Welcome to lesson HTML forms. This is agenda, understanding HTML form elements and method types. We'll see an example on HTML forms where I'll be discussing how to create an HTML form. And finally, I'll be giving you an exercise on how to format HTML forms. How to make your HTML form more beautiful on web page. Basically, I'll be giving you an exercise because how to format a web page is a topic that was already completed as part of our previous lessons. So use the prior knowledge and you need to format the HTML form at the end. Right. What I'm going to discuss is very simple. I'm going to teach you how to create HTML form. What is a form? The formal definition is very simple. It is an interface with text boxes, radio buttons, checkboxes, select options, and submit buttons. Using these interface elements, very easily we can take input from the user and we can submit it to the database server with the help of application programs like Python, JSP, Java Servlet, PHP. We can submit the data collected from the user to the database tables. This is what the importance of form. Okay, form is just like an interface which collects the user input. And different elements of forms are text boxes, radio buttons, checkboxes. Alright, so I don't dwell too much on these elements because you might have already used registration forms so many number of times. So this is a text box which basically takes characters as an input, and radio button, you can have any number of radio buttons, but only one of the button has to be selected by the user. You cannot select more than one. Whereas this is checkboxes, you can have any number of checkboxes and any number of checkboxes can be checked. It means that 0 or more. It depends upon the user's choice that checking a checkbox is user's choice. And if you want to force a user to select at least one item, then you have to write conditions through JavaScript. This is drop down, a select option. So simple. And here also you will be having multiple values, but out of all these values, one of the values will be selected here, as in the way we have selected a blue color. And there will be a submit button, and you can create a buttons like reset buttons, a user defined buttons like reset and save buttons. In the same way, you will have a submit button. There is no meaning for a form without a submit button. There should be a submit button. When a submit button is pressed, whatever the input data that is provided by the user will be submitted to the specified location. Basically, it is the location of an application server. Where that location has to be written and how to create this form, we are going to see in short. Before that, I want to tell you one of the important things that are related to form. Whenever you press the submit button, you are going to submit the data to the database server. This much is already known to you. Of course, in this example, I am not going to demonstrate how the data is transmitted to application server and how the data is processed there and submitted to the database tables. This thing I'm not going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to create HTML form only. Because to teach you how the data is loaded into the database table, you need to learn application programs like Java Servlets, JSP, PHP, Python, etc. So what is this method? So we are not submitting data. Then what are these methods? Post and get method. Even though we are not really submitting the data now, we need to know about post method and get method as part of HTML form. Every form will definitely have a submit button. If pressed, the data will be transmitted to application server. This much we know. Now, while transmitting the information, data from the client machine to application server, we can use two methods. One is post and other is get. In case if you use post method, the post method is secured, but it is very slow because the post method uses an encryption algorithm. It encrypts the user data so that it is highly secured. And it is very slow because we need to apply an encryption algorithm. Who applies that? Post operation applies that. It's not the responsibility of a developer who is involving in creating the HTML form. Post method by default uses an encryption algorithm automatically, and it encrypts all the user data provided through the HTML form and it transmits securely to the specified location. It is highly secured. And because of encryption and decryption at the client side and the server side, it is slow. We have the second option, get. In case the information provided by user, if you feel it is not very important, it is a common information. Okay, it is not very important even though the information is hacked. There won't be any loss to the user. Then we can use get method. Get method is very fast. It's highly fast because it is not. It doesn't use an encryption algorithm. It is not secure. It is the disadvantage. Its disadvantage is not secure. but its advantage is very fast because it doesn't use any encryption algorithm. The time that takes to encrypt the data and decrypt the data is 0. That's why the get method is very fast, right? So where do we actually use these methods, post and get? Whenever you wanted to submit data to the application server, any one of these two has to be used. Depends upon the situation, we need to choose either to go for post method or to go for get method. All right, now we have learned what exactly the HTML form is, what is the importance of submit button, and what is the importance of two methods, post and get. Now we are going to see the HTML source code to create the HTML form. Before that, I'll tell you what are the elements that I'm going to create. I'm going to create a text box which is similar to this one, and I'm going to create a radio button which is similar to this one, and I'm going to create checkboxes similar to these things, and a drop down menu which is similar to this one, and a submit button. These things I'm going to create. Now let's look at the source. Here is my source code. This is form.html. It is the place where I have created the HTML form. Let's execute before we check the source code. When executed, this is a form that you can see. Let me zoom in. Okay, so here basically we have text box, and this is gender is the radio buttons, skills, there are two checkboxes, and this is the drop down, and this is the submit button. I repeat my statement. The moment I provide the information here, if I submit, I'm not going to submit the actual data to the database server. We haven't established that kind of connections because we don't know application programming as of now. We are at initial stage of learning HTML forms. To originally submit the data to the database server, you need to learn application programming. Of course, those videos are readily available. You can check it out. Let's see the source code to create these elements, and then we'll try to see the final execution of this particular form. We'll try to provide some input data and try to press the submit button. What happens? Let's see. Before that, let's check it out, the source code to create those elements. And here is the source code. To display it as HTML forms as a heading, that I have used h1, and then two braces are used for the line breaks. And here is the place where the form is created. The highlighted text is under form. So form has the following attributes. What are the two attributes that I have taken? Action equals to. Sorry.html is a file that I have written. It means that whenever the user presses the submit button, the request will be redirected to sorry.html. It is HTML file. It's not an application program which collects the input data and process it and submits the data to the database table. Okay, it is simple HTML file which displays, sorry, I cannot submit this data to the database server because I don't know the application programming as of now. That text will be visible to you. Okay, to show something, I've added sorry.html file, and the type of method is being used is get method. It means that it is not secure but very fast. Very fastly the data will be submitted to the application server. Right now we need to create text box, radio button, checkbox, and drop down. 4 items we need to create, and at the end we need to create a submit button, right? So for whatever the input type, the syntax is this one. The form element is open here and the form element is closed here. So whatever that are required under form has to be created within these tags. Okay, form is open here and form is closed here. All right, now we'll see how to create text boxes, radio buttons, and check boxes. This is input type, is the syntax. So what type I need? A text box. So it is text, and the name of the field that is given as text box 1. Because whenever you are submitting data to the application server, it has to identify the value that is provided in this text box through the name that you have given here. So text box 1 is a user defined name that is given to this element, and the value equals to username. Whenever you have given that some value here, so that will be displayed under the text box. You can overwrite this one. Okay, so and instead of giving name here, okay, name will be printed, you can directly create a text box in which you can write username. It means that indirectly you are asking user to type the username there. Okay, so just like Gmail login page, Google's login page, you will be seeing a simple text box in which username is written. Like users will be very clearly, they can understand that they need to enter the username. Okay, all right. Now we need to create the radio buttons. Gender is taken into the account. Creating radio button is as simple as like creating a text box. Say input type equals to radio. The name has to be given. So here you can have any number of radio buttons. As I said before, only one of the value will be selected. That is the basic nature of radio buttons. So 2 radio buttons are created. The name of these radio buttons are gender. For the second one also, you can see the name is repeated as gender. You cannot give the different name because this radio button and this radio button belongs to one particular group called as gender. That's why the name should be gender. Right here, the first radio button, if selected, then the value will be passed as male. Second button, if it is selected, the value will be passed as female. Okay. To tell user if first button is selected, the value is male, then you need to write outside it as male. Okay. In the same way, you need to guide the end user. It is female. You cannot jumble these two. Okay. If you write female here and if it is male here, then if female is selected, and then actually the value will go male. Okay. I hope you understand. So whatever the guidelines that you are going to give to the end user should be accurate according to the value that you are going to take inside these input fields. That is very, very important. Okay. You cannot misguide them. You cannot say it is female here. If so females will be selecting that button. They'll think that female value will be passed to the database server, but actually the male. It is a fault of application programming. So we should not do that kind of things, right? That is a silly mistake. I hope we'll never do that, being nice programmers. Skills is a checkbox. You can create any number of checkboxes. Like radio buttons, they also fall under skills category. You can create any number of buttons. They all belong to skills category. Right. The first value is C. The second value is C++. To tell the first value is C, outside you need to write it as C. And to tell the second value, that is C++, outside you need to write it as C++. So the C and C++ will be displayed to the user. If first checkbox is clicked, then the value C will be passed. If second checkbox is clicked, then value C++ will be passed. And you can pass more than one value. That is the nature of checkboxes. You can select more than one checkbox. Finally, we have a drop down. Select qualification. This is a drop down. The name of this drop down is given as degree. And here it is UG, undergraduation, PG, post graduation. 2 drop down items will be there. One is UG and other is PG. You can select one while filling the registration form. And finally, select is open here. Select is open here. You need to create an options like option value equals to, and option is closed here. First option is closed here. And in the same way, the second option value equals to PG, and the second option is closed here. And here is the place where select is closed. So basically, the highlighted text here belongs to a drop down. A drop down is created using select. Right. Now, finally, we have a submit button. You can create a submit button just like input type equals to submit. Okay. How exactly you see how easy it is to remember. Input type equals to text box is created. Input type equals to radio button is created. Input type equals to checkbox is created. The only one which is quite different is select. You need to remember this thing. Select is open here with a name and closed here. Within the select option, you need to give the option values. You need to create the option values. Okay. This is quite different when compared to these input value syntax. The syntax is slightly different. You need to observe this one. Finally, input type equals to submit. A submit button is created. Right. So simple, right? Very, very simple. And note one point here. I did not format my form. I did not format. Look at here. The radio button is here, and it would be a good looking thing, and if female radio button appears exactly the same line of male, but it doesn't happen like that. The radio button has gone towards the left margin. Okay, but it doesn't follow the accurate direction of male button. And in the same way, the skill C is here and C++ here. And if you create a form of this type, this won't look good, and the end users will confuse a lot. We need to format this form using a background table with border equals to 0. You need to create a table. How to create a table? You create a table internally. Inside table, keep the form tag. Inside table, you need to create a form tag. Basically, what you need to do is that name, gender, skills should appear as one column, and this text box, male radio button, female radio button, and these checkboxes should appear in this second column. So column wise, if you see name, gender, skills, select qualification will appear in a well formatted manner in one single column. And these input elements, checkboxes, radio buttons will appear in the second column. And this thing will be part of your assignment here. As part of this lesson, I'm not going to demonstrate because in the previous lesson, I have already taken a very good example. I have demonstrated how to format a web page. If you're not very much clear about it, then watch that video. You'll get an idea. And implement the same here. Very beautiful HTML form you can create using a background table with border equals to 0. Right now, let's check it out. Let's fast arrays is the name that I'm giving. Male, and I'm selecting these two values, C and C++, and I'm selecting the drop down PG. Let me submit. When submit button is pressed, sorry.html file, the request is redirected to sorry.html file. So here that file says, sorry, your data is not submitted anywhere. You need to learn more. Of course, we need to learn more. If you originally wanted to save the data of registration user input form to the database table, then you need to learn application programming. It takes time. That's all about HTML forms. This is sorry.html file. Just I'll show you the code. Okay, it's I myself have written this document, a very simple document to which you have been redirected. When you have pressed submit button, this is the document that is executed. That's all, guys. And finally, make sure that you are creating a HTML form, a well formatted HTML form, and let me know in the comment section. In case if you're unable to do it, then please let me know. I'll guide you. Okay, see you in the next class. Bye bye. It is possible for us to host and upload many demanding courses on this YouTube channel only if you support us by subscribing. Please subscribe, switch on the notification bell, stay connected, and enjoy learning.